Final guest that is the only person below White Holiday in the Comicsgate phone book. It's my favorite failed clone of Peter Sammetti. The YouTube guys. How you doing, Conrad? Welcome to the show.
Hello. Welcome to Wise Guys Entertainment. This is your host, Wyman. Sorry, I got to change the banner. I messed up. Oh, good golly, Miss Molly. I forgot I was still set for Full Throttle remastered. Let's switch to this one. Oh, no. That's for another one. That's for a drawing stream. Which reminds me, I do have to do a drawing stream here. I have so many different projects I have to finish. Oh, whoa. All right, let me edit this now while I'm noticing it. All right. There we go. All right. You know what? Hold on. I think I have the space now to where I could use better grammar. Thanks for your continued support. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So we're going to resume the Critics Court from Film Threat, Star Wars, Critics Court, Star Wars by Film Threat. If I'm not mistaken, this year they've been doing Star Trek, but I haven't seen it mentioned all that much. I don't know. Maybe it fell off my algorithm, but I'm not seeing it. I haven't been seeing it. So I'll have to look into it later. Let's continue here. This is Count 4, Malicious Introduction of Current Day Politics.
Do you know what's in your cheap protein powder? Well, here to tell us is all-natural fitness athlete Paul Sklar.
All right, let's see what we've got.
Death threats are never okay. It's never something that should be okay. However, it does exist in this online world we live in. You talked about an online world, Mr. Rubio, and very dismissive of some of the things in this online world, despite the fact that we're right here. What I would say is that
Ryan did
I can go through
my
DMs and my requests, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I can find you horrific things. I can find you terrible things.
Same here.
That is a tiny microcosm of reality of all normal people out there. And I guess it is sad, but it's also just the reality. There's always going to be this very, very fringe 0.01% of the population that goes ahead and does something like that with us because of internet anonymity or whatever. What I will say is to play victim and to use this moment to put out a choreographed and and I think this is where some of the malice can come in, guys, is they had already planned on using this excuse in the case of Moses Ingram. They prepped the media, they prepped Moses Ingram, and as soon as it happened and there was bad feedback for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, boom, that's the biggest headline coming up week 3 of Obi-Wan release.
They prepped Miss Ingram because past his prologue and because of the treatment that Kelly Marie Tran had received. Moses Ingram is not only a female, she is an African-American female.
Yeah, I just.
Oh man, she's got double.
Women in any field are subject to more criticism than men, and I would also like to just point out at this time that this entire court is made up of I'm not going to call old white guys, but I'm going to say of white men of a certain age. I'm
actually non-binary and Latinx, sir.
Well, Mazel tov. I have no idea what it is, nor will I ever, as a female in my industry, which I have seen some deplorable things happen to females that would never happen to males, and sadly, that is the same case for any field. Females are marginalized, and I think that you'll walk into an office that will be 90% male workers and think nothing of it. But if the opposite is true, all of a sudden, oh my God, the world has gone to hell in a handbasket. Why are all these women here?
Mr. Rubio, I have a question for you. Do you think that
just because of the world we live in?
Do you think that who do you think is more, I guess, marginalized or feels more out of place in their workplace? A female nurse or a male nurse?
I wouldn't know, sir. I have neither, but I can't tell you.
You're just talking about every workplace here across the country.
Ryan, I make fun of my brother-in-law who's a male nurse all the time, so I'm going to go with male nurse.
But I think the point being made here is that they're allowing a small minority of hateful people speak for the majority, and I think that's what the major problem is that to not like a certain movie, to not like a certain character, now you equate that with the people who really don't like them and makes the racist and the misogynistic comments, and then assigns it to them, and that is not fair, and that does not fix the problem of fixing bad movies, bad stories, and bad characters.
It also happens to distract from the reality, which was much more than just about her race. It was
the point is the anger is misdirected. Again, I stated earlier in the proceedings that I have over 30 years in the business. About 17 of those years is with children's television, predominantly run by females. And quite frankly, some of the more powerful females in the industry. And I didn't, but most people don't know that because most people don't care where your My Little Ponies comes from or where your Batman comes from. But the cartoon renaissance of the 90s that has blossomed into what we now have is at least 5 networks running cartoons 24/7 was started by a female.
I'm sorry. Can I quickly add something? I think that this argument is, I'm going to say dumb. I have 115,000 subs on my main channel. That's nothing compared to Chris, but it's enough to warrant, my face isn't even in the video, constant comments daily on my videos that are just threatening and complaining about my voice, or my brother's voice, telling us horrible things, just assuming what we are. The internet, there's a portion of the internet that is always going to be that way, even with nothing but 100,000 subs. It's always going to be that way, always. You're not going to get rid of it. Trying to fight against that is just, it's like trying to punch the ocean. And it's just a waste of time. But that's not the majority of the fans. That's not the majority of Star Wars fans. That's a small portion. And the bigger the boat, the bigger that portion is going to be. And that's just facts.
But I think when you just take a look at some of these things and the way they've responded to fans, take Dave Filoni's clip that I played about his reaction to fans that were worried that what Kathleen Kennedy, what everyone at Lucasfilm was saying about pushing this highly feminist agenda and trying to inherently change their fan base was saying. And it was scoffing at them. He was making fun of them. And, I do feel like that's a little bit malicious, to be quite honest with you, in a way to interact with your fan base, while at the same time saying, we're going to go further and further down this path. And guess what? We're going to do it again.
And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
that's what I hear. Every time they say it, I hear the same thing.
Sophie Penn for 6. People didn't like Rose Tico's character. As a woman, her decisions and actions appalled me. She put her feelings above the safety of others. Bad writing. And Ben Roy Turner.
I know the Rose Tico thing was addressed at some point.
I'd like to say agreed, but not malicious.
The thing I would say about the Rose Tico thing, and I didn't get to address it in cross-exam, I wish I would have, but the claim was that Kelly Marie Tran was harassed off social media by all these people that were very mean to her. And then you brought up a Wikipedia entry about the character of Rose Tico.
Yes.
I would love to see screenshots of all the harassment she received that made her delete her Instagram. It wasn't just like, wow, your character sucks. Wow, your character sucks. Wow, your character was really pointless.
But you have to understand that most of them are basically screen grabs before she took down her account, and so they're just like, they don't have the person who tweeted it, the name. That's the one problem with people that are racist. They don't really want you knowing that.
Yeah, to be clear, the alleged comments
they'll make a comment and then they'll delete it.
To be clear, there was a very small number of comments on her Instagram about how people didn't like her character. And also, if we want to take Kelly Marie Tran at her word, she actually left social media because of the pressures of Hollywood in the entertainment industry. She did not label toxic fandom. She did not blame fans for her leaving social media. So I would take Kelly Marie. I think Kelly Marie Tran's a really sweet person. So I personally would take her at her word instead of trying to victimize her.
Your Honor, can I bring up a question real quick?
I want to answer the
Mr. Rubio's
viewer's question.
Go ahead, Mr. Rubio.
About how who exactly pushes the hateful speech to the top. It's your cookies and your metrics. The more that a word appears within an article on the web, the higher up it gets pushed. People respond to that, continuing with certain key phrases, and that continues to push it up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rubio. You're actually, that used to be the case in like 2003, but we haven't been using Boolean search since literally the early 2000s. The way it works now is actually unknown. It's not based on cookies or words. The algorithm can't even be gamed the same way as it used to be back in the early 2000s. So now it's actually based mostly on actual people or bots on social media that give whatever the campaign's looking for that bullhorn, and it can be positive or negative. It's often negative because negativity sells more than positivity does. Take it from me. I have 2 channels. One has 115,000 subs, and I've been very positive for 5 years, and it's taken me a long time. Another one has 6K subs, and it's grown 15 times faster, and I complain most of the time. Negativity sells better than positivity, especially when the negativity has value in critical thought. When people are watching you and they're saying, oh, wow, I feel the same way. I also feel very betrayed by this franchise or by this show or this movie or whatever. When they start seeing or hearing what you're saying as their thoughts, then they will push that message for you. That's the way the internet works.
Thank you for the education. In answer to Ryan's question about Kelly Marie Tran, an interview with Vox.com on June 5th, 2018, she said, and I quote, I avoided social media for the longest time purely because I was afraid. I was terrified of being picked apart, of being scrutinized, of being seen. I am an incomplete, imperfect, broken mess. And I am here to say that it's okay to be imperfect.
So in that entire interview, she goes in detail about her backstory and her history, and always feeling this way about herself. So she was saying that she avoided social media before these things happened because of all of those pressures. That's what that interview is about, I believe.
I would submit that anyone who receives any kind of notoriety or fame on the internet receives, I would say, the equal amount of abuse.
100%. So I can show you hundreds of comments from last week. Hundreds of comments, and I'm not even famous. 100,000 subs. And I get 150 comments a week.
Can I share some DMs with the court? It may please the court.
Please, Mr.
Oh, Ryan's probably worse than me.
All right, so this is just, I'm not going to go through all of them. I feel it'll take forever. I just want to go through one and to show people that this does happen on the internet. Mark McGeehan, thanks for sending your DMs, buddy. I appreciate it. You finally got my attention. Hey, asshole, delete those videos you talking shit about Disney or I'm going to report you. I wish every day you got banned from YouTube. You're racist. I'm warning you to stop shit talking Disney. I seriously hope you die one day. I am seriously going to destroy your career if you talk shit about Star Wars. I'm still going to keep reporting you when you're dead and or banned from YouTube. You're a dead man walking. I'm warning you. Are you ready to die? Stop talking shit about Disney, you racist. Shit. You're a dead man walking. I wish every day you're dead in the news. Stop talking about Disney, you racist. Are you ready to die? Racist Disney hater. I'm warning you. I wake up every day. I think he says, I wish you were dead. I wish you could just die and never show your face again. Stop talking crap about Disney. You're really making me pissed off. Stop. Get ready to die. I wake up every. So is this enough?
Jesus, that's way worse than me, dude. Oh my God.
Ryan, you underestimate Mr. McGeehan's 7 followers.
I know.
It would seem that he really only has about 2 songs on his playlist.
Oh, Lord, man.
I stopped because then he starts calling me racial slurs. He starts somehow calling me the N-word. Not sure how that works if I'm racist and also white. But so I just use that as an example to point out that people that are online, people that make themselves publicly available, there's going to be some freaks like that out there. There's going to be some people, and that doesn't make
that's way worse than mine.
Acceptable, but it is just the reality. It's not acceptable that somebody might run a red light and T-bone me and kill me. But it's part of life when you go out there and decide to drive. That's kind of my view on online harassment.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I get made fun of because of my weight and my voice. That guy's threatening to kill you.
Yeah.
Not even the same. I apologize.
You're a very handsome man, Brian.
Well, even I have experienced this. When I first started doing television in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember the first email I received. I have no idea how this person got my email. It was from Chris Gore is fat at hotmail.com. That is the email address. And it was just someone saying cruel and horrible things. It got to the point where when I was on a show called The New Movie Show, I got a threat from a guy that was a very specific threat. It was in writing. And unbeknownst to me, I wasn't aware of this. There is a division of the Los Angeles Police Department that specifically deals with threats to people that work in the entertainment industry. I turned over the evidence to the people in that department. They then visited and had a conversation with this person. So I can tell you, and I'm reviewing movies at the time like Adam Sandler movies, Right. So I
think I was watching it.
If you reviewed Jack and Jill, that's worthy of threats. All right,
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, but, you were asking for it then.
Exactly. So I don't want to I don't want to jump into the conversation too much. Go ahead, Dr. Gordo.
It's rather quickly. I guess I know as annoying as it is, it really does come back to this word malicious. Does it mean just to do something on purpose? Okay, that's where it seems like a lot of people are using that definition. Did Disney include all this current identity politics on purpose?
Yeah.
Well, yes. But if your definition of malicious is to cause harm, did they do it to cause harm?
Yes.
You could look at it like this. Did you do the dishes? Yes, I did them maliciously. So are the dishes okay? If you did the dishes maliciously, I'm just trying to point out the power of that word because, yes, the preciseness of language does matter. I think something else has come up here today, that when it comes to the Star Wars galaxy, we're okay with diversity. It's okay that you've got a galaxy full of different people who look different things, have different values.
Of course.
Is it okay if there's female characters in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We love Leia. Rey could have been great, but wasn't. Because again, it really comes down to the way things were executed. They did not hire the best people for the job, and it doesn't really matter what the gender ratio was. And then when it comes to the gay agenda, I will go on to live and say, I think Star Wars are okay with gender fluid characters, just like they're okay with the female characters or they're okay with diversity. It all comes down to, are you telling an entertaining story that is going to let me escape reality for a few hours? That is what we want you doing on purpose. And I think that's what Disney has been trying to do. Have they been doing so well with the execution? That's up for another debate, because again, our matter here today is quite simple. Did Disney maliciously push a political agenda on the audience, and did it maliciously go after fans, calling them racist? We've looked at the evidence here, and although there's a lot of circumstantial stuff going on, no, Disney did not organize a campaign to go after the fans, and no, it did not organize a campaign to annoy the audience and lose money. Thank you.
They don't mind money.
I guess I can go. That way you can wrap it up.
Sure.
Hey, Brian. So there's got to be a difference between malicious-wise. There's got to be a difference between losing money and pushing an agenda that you think that you can weather. So what Mr. Rubio said was, he said, well, how can it be malicious if their goal is to make money? Well, sure, their secondary goal is to make money, but their primary goal is to push an agenda, and they're hoping they can get away with it. And they just didn't this time. In fact, I would say they probably did money-wise. They probably made out okay, but the fans aren't happy, and that's why the IP is slowly losing steam. So the question is their agenda to make money, right? Or is it to push some kind of political agenda, i.e. fourth wave feminism or whatever? Is that the agenda? When you look at what the creators of the movies and TV shows are saying on Twitter and in interviews, like Mr. Cannell pointed out, they clearly, either they're lying to the audience that they're speaking to about pushing down one type of fan to lift up another type of fan, or they're not, or they're telling the truth and they're doing that intentionally. And if they're doing that intentionally and they know that the backlash is going to be negative, then they think that they can probably weather the storm because the agenda is more important than the money in the short term.
Yeah.
They probably think that us dumb Star Wars fans are going to eat it up anyways and still go watch the movie. And in a lot of cases, that's probably the case. This is the reason why Transformers makes $1 billion every time it comes out. We can complain about it all day long, but we still show up, right? Yeah. So at what point does it matter if we complain about it if we're still watching the movies and TV shows?
Yeah.
And if they know that, if they have those metrics, if they know that we're still going to show up, like Jason Isaac said about Star Trek Discovery, the Trekkies are still going to show up regardless. If they know we're still going to show up, then they can do whatever they want. They can push the envelope, they can take the heat, and they can blame it on racist fans in pre-written press releases that they wrote before the episode even came out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's the thought.
Well
Did you want to respond to that, Mr. Rubio?
Well, it's a close, so I don't know if I can respond to that.
I feel like Mr. Gordo went and Brian went.
But I would like
it's open to.
But I would like something for the record.
Yeah, sure.
If it pleases the court.
Please.
Within these proceedings, the court has had to remind the jury no less than 4 times to be impartial. Also, through no fault of the court, a video that could prove bias showcasing the judge himself has been let loose upon the internet, making it a little more difficult for our case. Thirdly, the court itself did, in fact, show when showcasing responses, the prejudice of the jury, in which that was two of the 4 times in which the court had to say that the jury must remain impartial. 4, throughout the entire proceedings, and I presume this will not change through the next 5 counts, the court has, because of its inability and because of the nature of the court itself and the fact that we are online, both the prosecution and the defense have been denied voir dire, which of course is the ability to select the jury and interview the jury to make sure that it is impartial. This is in violation of the 6th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, and it is grounds for dismissal. And so I would like the judge to consider that when all of this is over, and that perhaps this be retaken up at Comic-Con when both the prosecution and the defense can actually select an impartial jury.
I'll take it under advisement. We're trying to find a location where we might be able to have the final episode and the final verdict live at San Diego Comic-Con. That is something that's in the works. It may or may not happen. I can't promise right now.
I guess. By the way, I want to remind the jury that droids are not allowed to render a verdict in this trial.
No bots allowed. Yeah. The only discrimination that was in the Star Wars universe, according to George Lucas, actually.
Right.
What I will say is this: I think it's been a great back and forth, and I thank the defendants for. This is a tall task. I think there is a lot of negative energy around Star Wars right now. I think that's directly the fault of Lucasfilm. I think they're the ones that caused this. We've been speaking a lot about malice. That's what the defense is focused on. The semantics over malice, which is in the charge. Was there intent to damage? Was there intent to do harm? I would argue yes. I think we showed sufficient evidence in the beginning, especially with some of these Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy videos that are out there, acknowledging that we need to change Star Wars. But also acknowledging at the same time, we're not going to cater to men. In fact, what was happening? They may have hoped to grow the overall brand. They may have hoped the end result would be better off for them in the end by pushing away some of their fans, which is absolutely what they did. But in reality, they admitted that they were not going to cater to men, the biggest portion of their fan base. As defense so ironically pointed out at one point during our open debate, Mr. Rubio looked at the panel, and I don't know how he ignored Mr. Ng. I don't know how he missed him, but he said, it's a panel of a bunch of white men speaking here. I don't really find that ironic, because I think we have a large portion of people that are very, very passionate about Star Wars. The fact that the people that are most passionate about Star Wars were here to argue for it, either for or against, happen to be men and happen to be mostly white. I don't think that that's like a coincidence. I think that that's the passionate part of the fan base. And it's the one that specifically Disney and Lucasfilm refused to cater to and told everyone that they weren't going to cater to them. So regardless if they thought they could make up for it on the back end by getting more women to watch or anything, they did intentionally do harm to that existing fan base. That's the reality in my mind, and I think in the mind of the good people of the jury. When it comes to these diverse stories, yeah, absolutely. There's always been, well, I don't know about always, but there's been black people in Star Wars for a long, long time. People weren't sitting there getting upset. They weren't sending Billy D. Williams, death threats and things like this, right? There may have been 1 or 2 outliers here and there. For the most part, that's just simply not the case. It wasn't the case for Moses Ingram either. People are mad that she was a bad character. But when it comes to what people are upset about, the story, I think, and so many other people think, that the reason why the story is suffering is because they're more focused on these checkboxes. They're more focused on diversity. They're more focused on pushing an agenda than they actually are about telling a good story. Now, I think that I think Disney thought, with all their ego, Kathleen Kennedy, I think they all thought that they could just slap Star Wars on something and it'd make billions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? It worked for a little while until people realized that this isn't their Star Wars anymore. And now they are finally seeing the ramifications of that. They are realizing that this is what we have done to the Star Wars brand. We pushed all these people who were fans away. We admitted it. We told them they were going to do it. We laughed in their face like Dave Filoni. But that's what they did. And now they're sitting there, and all they have left is their storytelling ability. They don't have that big brand, that big excitement about Star Wars anymore, and that is why they're failing. And that is why Disney murdered Star Wars with all of these things, including Count 4, the malicious introduction of current-day identity politics. Thank you, Your Honor.
The prosecution rest. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well said. Well said. All right, so this was an open debate. Next one.
The secret to our deodorant is sand. We got a crazy message from a customer named Mina. Here it is.
Trying to read what this says. This says the. Oh crud! Can I zoom in at all? No. It's hard to tell unless you're able to. All right, so I think that says debate. So which one is the defense versus which one is the... All right, the debate goes last, so I guess we'll try... Star Wars lore is F. That's count 5.
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant.
Lore.
The plans that George Lucas had for the sequel trilogy were abandoned by Disney, and all of his expanded universe stuff was decanonized.
This.
Well, it's never been mentioned in the movies, so it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's inadmissible as evidence.
Disney is a lot more than the movies, Mr. Drinker.
Well, as we have our witness here, you can ask our witness.
Okay. Mr. Lucas, what was your intention to do with the wills?
Well,
your next trilogy.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that the original idea was that the midichlorians and the wills were able to tap into the Force. I mean, that's the whole point of it. It's the biological connection to the Force, and it's a very simple concept to understand. The midichlorians and the wills are not the Force; they can just tap into it.
Okay. But if someone was born with a very high amount of midichlorians, could they maybe be a Force savant, like Doug Hoffman and Rain Man or something with the Force?
Your Honor, what bearing does this have on my statement?
It has perfect bearing, Your Honor. A high midichlorian count could, within the possibility of canon, essentially explain every single thing that Ray does in the franchise. Thank you very much.
Now, it's my understanding that a high midichlorian count grants you Force powers, to be sure, but you have to learn how to wield them. You have to learn how to access them. That is where the training comes in.
Yes, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes, go on.
That was always my intention, that the midichlorians are able to focus the energy, but they do not transmit knowledge or ability.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
You can certainly learn from someone who is Force adept, and otherwise, young Anakin would have been the most powerful Jedi ever at the age of 7 years old.
Which he was. He blew up a freaking droid ship all by himself.
No,
I think the Starfighter that was in with its torpedoes probably had a big part to play in that.
He would have stayed on Tatooine and not done anything.
A creative decision was made by our client to have Palpatine influencing the ultimate outcome and growth of Rey in ways that she does not know, using the dark side of the Force, which, as we all know, is very mysterious.
Well, like I said, the midichlorians do not transmit good story ideas either.
That's true, Your Honor. An omission of guilt in a small way. It's just very clear that the idea and decision to begin retconning Star Wars and its lore and the ideas about the Force began with George Lucas himself. And Disney has only continued to do within the parameters of what we saw as acceptable, and perhaps we went too far. But we just did what George did.
Yeah. Well, my question on this one is very simple. Like on the example of the hyperspace ram maneuver, which we saw in the Last Jedi, do you guys all accept that if you have the ability to do that, simply crash one ship into a fleet of ships and obliterate all of them through the power of the ramming technique, that rather changes the dynamics of space battles forever within Star Wars?
In our third movie,
and not for the better.
We don't agree that they employ all of these devices properly. But bad writing, I think, is a separate issue from just the lore.
Well, I guess my argument would be that bad writing and lore breaking go hand in hand generally. I will have to say, though, unfortunately, the defense's entire argument is inadmissible in this case on the grounds that at no point, at any point during their entire extremely lengthy diatribe did they ever mention the word lore or even touch upon the subject. Therefore, everything they said was completely irrelevant to this case.
Objection, Your Honor. The very first thing I said was that it was asked by the fans to adjust the lore that was being adjusted by George Lucas. He began the adjustment of the lore. We just continued. We tried to adjust it back to a place that people would love. It's not our fault that it didn't.
Let's settle this right now, Mr. Lucas. You've heard the prosecution and defense. Can you help us with this one?
The thing is, I don't think this is a case of George Lucas did it bad, so Disney is off the hook. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, it's not my position to argue one side or the other. I am like the Force. I have a dark side and a light side, so I can respond either way. The problem is that my lore that I created was mine to do with as I saw fit.
Yeah.
And the problem with that was that the reaction from the prequels was not very good, at least not as much as I had hoped. So naturally, I wanted to sell the whole damn thing. What they did afterwards, I don't really have a say in, obviously. And I just find it funny that people are arguing over these little things like Mandalorians, or I'm sorry, midichlorians. I get confused by that sometimes. But it's these are all sort of mechanical things that I was coming up with to sort of explain the world that I created. And whether you react positively or negatively, you just have to admit that when the sequel movies came out, you were begging for Ewoks again. So that's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Lucas, when you wrote the script for Return of the Jedi, and at the end when Emperor Palpatine was blasted by his own Force lightning and thrown down the reactor shaft into the exploding Death Star, did you intend for him to be killed?
Well, I don't, a fall like that probably would decimate many people. I'm not exactly sure as to the outcome from that. I'm sure I could have come up with a better way to bring him back. But, I think that the Force can answer for many questions. And it's a dramatic thing. It's a story thing. I think you have to assume that he was destroyed in that. But who knows? He could have had other clones of himself that he could have jumped into. Who knows? There's many ways that Palpatine could have returned, and I just was confused by the way he did.
Mr. Lucas, members of our jury are referencing an explosion that occurred after Emperor Palpatine fell down the bottomless chasm. Care to explain?
Well, his robes were made of very fire inducing materials, and I'm sure that was
flammable.
What the explosion was.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. No further questions.
Plus, Your Honor, you mentioned that it was a bottomless chasm, so he had clearly fallen all the way through and avoided the explosion of the Death Star.
Wow! Thank you for that theory, Mr. Ng. And Mr. Lucas, my understanding is you really have no dog in this fight. But if you care to make any comment on today's proceedings, just to add context, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, sorry, I just got back to the desk. I was checking out the price of Disney stock. Look, I think that the question is that do you like the direction that Star Wars was going when I was involved, or do you like better the direction that it went after I wasn't? And I think that's the big question. And was the the white slavers were they responsible for taking it a direction you didn't like? I think they did all they could to sort of eliminate my my needs. And look, that's their prerogative. They paid good money for it. But I think that the direction that everything went is their decision. And I think
more than they
the question is, if you like that direction, then you'll vote for the defense. And if you don't like that direction, then you'll vote for the prosecution. I think it's very simple.
Life's better when you're under our roof. Life's better when you're under our roof. Save up to 23% by bundling your home and auto with us.
If you have a passion to achieve more for yourself, your family.
Okay. Do you think the favorite tactic of doing one sentence explanations for complex ideas is a good tactic? For example, how did Maz Kanata recover Luke Skywalker's original lightsaber
unfortunately,
and present it to Leia? Because that's a pretty big question considering how he lost it.
My understanding, some of that was explained in some of the novelizations, and I perfectly agree. It's a bunch of BS. that I have to read a source book to know what's happening in a movie. I hate that myself. But
went a little far.
Unfortunately, we didn't bring Disney didn't bring J.J. back to continue the story, and they brought in Rian Johnson.
I just need to add something here. His name is Ryan. It's just Ryan. It's not Rian. It's just Ryan.
I thought it was Rian.
No, it's Ryan. He spelled it differently, but
yeah, just spelled it.
He's doing
it's like how you spell Wookiee differently. It's
the thing is, he subverts your expectation even with his very name.
So when someone I'm going to take it, you didn't read the Zahn trilogy.
Excuse me, Mr. Marks.
You can probably take that as a given, yes.
Okay, bringing Thrawn out of that and putting him into Rebels, they did a really good, respectful job of it. As someone who's read those books and understands them.
I mean, that is fantastic.
Yeah,
I guess I'm more concerned with the lore of the movies following on into the movies that.
He was pleased with how.
That's I think where we start to fall apart a little bit. Particularly, I was very interested to learn who Snoke was, where he came from, what his true objectives were, how he got the Force powers that he did, what he's seen, what he's experienced in his life. But I guess we'll never know.
I disagree.
Yeah,
he was a clone. That's the answer that Rian Johnson, the saboteur,
people didn't care for
he eventually chose for that. But there were many good choices in that film as well.
Like I can't think of any, but like I'm sure they exist.
Actually, the Rebel children, the image of the Rebel Alliance, the symbol that fans have been tattooing on themselves for ages. We love the fans. We did the best we could.
I really like the bit where Luke gets reunited with his lightsaber and then tosses it over his shoulder and walks away. It's good stuff.
He obviously didn't want it anymore. It was with Kanata.
It was just wanted to take it back. I like when Rey beat his ass. That was very satisfying to see.
You guys should have expected him to do that. It was not a weird choice. He didn't have it anymore. He didn't like it anymore.
There is something to be said about basically tossing it aside in the sense that
what do you mean?
I don't need this anymore. That I've gone beyond with my powers of the Force, beyond just needing to wield a lightsaber anymore. I can defeat a dozen AT-ATs with Force projection.
Yes, it represents the trappings of commercialism. Who needs this trendy thing?
I think that would have been cool if Luke truly was powerful with the Force at that point in the movie, but he'd cut himself off from the Force at that point, so he had no Force powers. Really.
Force.
It was interesting though because apparently he cut himself off from the Force, but he could also do like Force pulls and so on, telekinesis. But yeah, it's an interesting world that Ryan created. The rules are fluid, I guess.
Let me ask the panel this question, but regarding the Force is such a fundamental idea and concept in the first 6 movies and in the extended universe. Do you believe that Disney Lucasfilm today has adequately evolved the Force, has adequately evolved it, grown it, used it in a way that was meaningful, I would say, to fans in the first 6?
No.
In a sense, they did evolve it. I think they did do some good work with it. But
did they evolve it in a meaningful way where we understood more about it?
It's weird that
Rebels, if you watch Rebels, yes. The stuff that happens in Rebels, especially in the exploration of the Force, because you have a longer period of time, you have 4 seasons of 13 episodes each. You get to build. They really did do a good job of expanding that, especially and showing off the Force powers.
But you're talking about a TV
Rebels
series.
is a continuation of the Clone Wars.
Okay, well, you're talking about a TV series, and my question now then is: did what you like about what they brought to in Rebels, did that expand itself into the sequels?
Yes, to a limited extent.
We made remade A New Hope in The Force Awakens to re-inspire a new generation. And what did the fans say? The fans said, this is derivative, this is predictable. And then we took hundreds of meetings with different writers and directors and producers. And when Rian Johnson came into the room and he blew our minds by having Luke throw the lightsaber over his shoulder, we thought, this is exactly what the fans have asked us for.
No.
We tried to give it to you. Did we fail in lots of little middling ways as we tried to correct our ESG score and get more money into the franchise so we could keep making stars? Yes, we did. But we did it all in good faith, and there is evidence littered everywhere that tells that story.
Who shot first, Han or Greedo?
Guy in the blue.
Well, I mean, you can see the movie. Look at the movie and see who shoots first.
Objection, Your Honor. Forces to answer the question.
I did.
Mr. Lucas, they're not satisfied with your response. Can you please elaborate?
There is look at any version of Star Wars that is out there available, and you will see who shoots first. I can't explain it any clearer.
Original
either you watch the movie and enjoy it, or you don't. But I think anything else is just McClunky.
Mr. Lucas, I want to know how many hours a day do you swim in all that money that Disney gave you?
Well, that's just silly. You can't swim in money. You can.
I beg to differ.
You can lie on top of it. You can wallow around in it.
Well, I feel like if you stack it high enough, they gave you enough to be able to at least fill in a swimming pool full of cash.
Well, unfortunately, a big chunk of it was in Disney stock.
Yeah,
so,
very good.
You're right.
You know,
Okay, a jacuzzi,
which is
not looking too good these days. But, no, I'm fine, and I swim when I want to.
Mr. Lucas, if you were able to get Lucasfilm at a discount, would you be tempted to buy it back?
You know, I don't know. It'd have to be a huge discount.
Just looking that way right now.
Well, we'll see what happens at the end of June.
I have something to say.
Oh, do it, Mortal.
Please, Mr. Relic.
In defense of Kathleen Kennedy and Ray Skywalker, you know, I'm just going to speak from the heart. When I was a little girl, I never saw someone that looked like me on the big screen. And if there had been a character like Ray for me to look up to, it would have literally saved my life. And after a career of hanging out with the boys, Kathleen Kennedy had her big shot to step out on her own and to show all the little girls in the world that you can be anything. You can be a superhero, you can be a Jedi, even a mermaid. That's
thank
all.
you. Thank you, Mr. Relic.
Okay.
Trauma.
Excuse me? You are blocked.
Critical drinker strikes.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to.
What does it feel like to step into the Athens tube? Kinda like, revolutionary cage technology compresses.
Man, I can't figure it out.
Please present your argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's my intention today to prove to you.
Oh.
Death threats are never okay. It's never something that should be okay. However, it does exist in this online world we live in. You talked about an online world, Mr. Rubio, and very dismissive of some of the things in this online world, despite the fact that we're right here. What I would say is that I can go through my DMs and my requests.
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant. The plans that George Lucas had for the sequel trilogy were abandoned by Disney, and all of his expanded universe stuff was decanonized.
This.
Well, it's never been mentioned in the movies, so it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's inadmissible as
Disney is
evidence.
a lot more than the movies, Mr. Drinker.
Well, as we have our witness here, you can ask our witness.
Okay. Mr. Lucas, what was your intention to do with the wills?
Well,
your next trilogy.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that the original idea was that the midichlorians and the wills were able to tap into.
This is what I just saw, I think.
Okay. Do you think the favorite tactic of doing one sentence explanations for complex ideas is a good tactic? For example.
Please present your argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's my intention today to prove to you beyond reasonable doubt that Star Wars under Disney is guilty of ruining its own lore. Now, the proof in this case is going to come in two parts. Firstly, the Disney Star Wars has, through a combination of incompetence and malevolent intent, destroyed and contradicted the existing lore and canon that was established under George Lucas. And secondly, that it has utterly failed in its own attempts to introduce new lore and canon to the point where it actually ends up contradicting itself. Now, first of all, let's consider the matter of existing lore that's been systematically destroyed and contradicted in the course of Disney Star Wars reign. First of all, I want to present to you exhibit number 1, the Force. Surely one of the most fundamental elements of Star Wars. The Force in the original trilogy was a mystical energy that flowed through all living things. It was as subtle and unknowable as it was powerful and influential. It represented the very essence of life itself with all its endless complexity and potential. It could be used to perform simple tricks like bending the mind of an enemy soldier to your will or sensing threats without being able to see them. And in some cases, it even allowed people to move solid objects or choke enemies without even touching them. And at the extreme end of the spectrum, in the case of people like Emperor Palpatine, it could even project lightning out of thin air. Now, the thing about the Force is that it wasn't just some convenient tool to fix every problem or an ultimate weapon that could destroy any opponent or military force. It was supposed to be more subtle than that. But now let's consider what the Force is capable of in the Disney Star Wars universe. Intergalactic Skype calls, healing major injuries almost instantly, lifting thousands of tons of rubble with no difficulty whatsoever, barely any inconvenience, in fact. Projecting lightning powerful enough to disable entire battle fleets across hundreds of miles of space, bringing people back from the dead, allowing Force ghosts that can now interact with the real world. They can catch solid objects. They can even summon lightning to set trees on fire. None of these things were possible before, but now they somehow are. Why? Because in the minds of Disney writers, bigger always equals better. This isn't what the Force is supposed to be. In fact, in the words of Han Solo, that's not how the Force works. Now, the other important aspect of the Force is that it required great skill and effort to learn how to use it in the first place. Even the most simple skills took great amounts of effort to master. Unless your name happened to be Rey, in which case it just kind of happens for you. Jedi have devoted their entire lives to mastering Force skills and expanding their abilities. Even Anakin Skywalker and Luke both had to train hard and struggle to gain the powers that they had. They failed multiple times. They made mistakes along the way, and they often suffered from it, but they also learned from it too.
Super easy.
The light and the dark sides of the Force represented different moral pathways. The dark side offers a quick and easy route to power without the wisdom and restraint needed to wield it, and the light side represented a longer and harder, but ultimately more rewarding road. That was the essence of what the Force represented. It was a moral choice. Then we come to Disney Star Wars, and Rey. Rey is able to master, for example, mind control, telekinesis, lightsaber combat, and even Force lightning with no training, preparation, any kind of information or guidance of any sort. It just happens for her. There's no temptation towards the dark side, which further undermines the very purpose of the Force in Star Wars. It just becomes a quick and easy route to power for Rey, without any of the temptations or downsides that come with it. All of these elements represent a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Force is, how it functions, and what it means for characters who have to deal with it. It is ultimately the destruction and desecration of the most fundamental aspects of Star Wars lore. Now I'd like to bring you along to exhibit number 2, hyperdrives. Now, up until Disney took over Star Wars, hyperdrives were a simple, easy way of getting the characters from one end of the galaxy to another. They were basic. They were easy to follow rules about how they worked. You had to know where you were going, you needed a computer to plot you a safe course, and you needed a little bit of time to spool up your hyperdrive. But once that was done, you could fire it up and escape from anyone that might be chasing you. Disney Star Wars, on the other hand, destroys this lore by introducing us to the hyperspace tracker, which now makes it impossible for anyone to escape via hyperspace. Then it convolutes the situation even further and contradicts its own lore by introducing us in the following movie to hyperspace skipping, which apparently allows you to overcome the hyperspace tracker, but only if you're the best pilot in the entire universe. Otherwise, you're just going to crash and die. It's a constant rewriting of the rules. These movies also introduced us to hyperspace ramming, which allows you to just fire up your drive and crash a ship into another ship, obliterating it instantly. It destroys the very concept of space battles in Star Wars, because why even bother to engage in combat when you can just ram a ship straight into an enemy fleet and obliterate them at a stroke? Then, we come to the following movie, The Rise of Skywalker, which dismisses this entire thing with a simple throwaway line, claiming it was a 1 in a million shot that couldn't be replicated again. Really? I find that rather hard to believe that was a 1 in a million shot. I mean, why can't you just point your ship at an enemy and hit the hyperdrive? Can't be that hard. These same movies also introduced us other ridiculous lore-breaking concepts like cloaking devices, something that's never really been mentioned in Star Wars before. And then immediately it nullifies them with the concept of decloaking scans. So what's the point in even having them? Once again, Star Wars doesn't just destroy the lore of the previous trilogy, it destroys and contradicts its own lore, the things that it tries to establish, constantly rewriting the rules to fit whatever situation comes up. Exhibit number 3 I present to you is Obi-Wan Kenobi. We all remember Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's the wise mentor who guided and protected Luke in A New Hope. He was the man who fought and mortally wounded Anakin Skywalker on Mustafar before going into exile for the next 17 years. And finally, in A New Hope, he sacrifices himself to buy enough time for Luke to escape. Now, the dialogue in their final fight between between Obi-Wan and Vader, it makes it very clear this is the first time that they've met since their battle on Mustafar. But apparently it wasn't, because along came the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, which now introduces a whole other series of conflicts between the two of them. Another fight where Obi-Wan defeats Anakin, and instead of killing him, putting him out of his misery, ending a threat to the entire galaxy, he walks away and leaves him. It makes no sense, but it doesn't have to, because Disney don't care. They're all about the instant gratification. They're about giving you a quick and easy hit. Doesn't matter if it breaks the lore, and it doesn't matter if it breaks the characters. Not only does this contradict what we know from the original trilogy, it also turns his character into an idiot who makes the most basic of mistakes. He makes terrible tactical choices. He gives away Leia's name when they're in the company of stormtroopers because he doesn't think. He even allows a 10-year-old girl to lead him around. None of these additions enhance Obi-Wan's character. They destroy it, and they destroy the lore that was built around him.
True.
Finally, I bring you to exhibit number 4, Emperor Palpatine. He was the ultimate enemy of the Star Wars story in the original trilogy. He was a man who conquered the galaxy, who seduced Anakin to the dark side, and he tried to do the same to Luke, only for Darth Vader to turn against him and cause him to be blasted by his own force lightning and fall thousands of feet down a reactor shaft into the core of an exploding Death Star. Now, you might think that would leave him completely, utterly, and irrefutably dead. Nobody could survive something like that. But then we get to the Rise of Skywalker, and we find out that somehow Palpatine returned. Really? How? How do you survive that? Because I'd like to know. So would millions of other Star Wars fans all around the world. But we don't get any explanation for it. It's just thrown in there. Again, it rewrites the history, it rewrites the lore, and it tramples on everything that came before, just to give you simple gratification, something you recognize. There's no answers to this question, ladies and gentlemen, because these movies are a complete farce. They make things up and they rewrite history as they go along. And I guess that's not even mentioning other big lore-breaking questions like, how exactly did the First Order manage to construct a planet-sized Death Star ripoff with a fleet of hundreds, maybe even thousands of ships without anyone noticing?
Yeah.
Where did they even get the resources for such a massive undertaking? Or how did the Emperor manage to build and maintain a fleet of 10,000 Star Destroyers, apparently, along with the millions of crewmen it would need to man them, and keep them sitting around for doing nothing for 30 years?
Yeah.
Where did all the crew come from? How did they pay and feed them? No one knows. It doesn't matter. None of this makes sense because they don't care about the lore and they don't care about logic or the history of Star Wars. They just make it up.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I can sit here for days outlining all of the blatant contradictions and desecrations of Star Wars lore that Disney have inflicted upon us, but it wouldn't be necessary. It should be obvious to any fan of this franchise that modern Star Wars is a disaster in every sense of the word, financially, creatively, and reputationally. It's a franchise limping from one disaster to another. It's barely even able to sustain the integrity of its own stories, never mind respecting or even caring about the lore that came before it. Star Wars, quite simply, is guilty. Guilty not just of demystifying and destroying its own lore, not just of blatantly contradicting and destroying its own legacy, but guilty of the biggest crime of all, being completely and utterly shit. The prosecution rests.
Thank you, Mr. Drinker.
All right. Looks like I got a spam bot on Twitch again. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. Let's try this one.
New Airhead Sour Bars. They start sour.
Hi, I'm Carol.
Yeah. So, Your Honor, I believe that many mistakes have been made and many mistakes have been pointed out today. But the reality is, the charge is having broken the lore. And I am not so certain that we have indeed broken the lore. I do believe we fixed the shooting through the spaceship with that one line of dialogue that it was 1 in a million. It's never going to happen again. You know, sometimes freak things happen. And it was a freak thing. But as far as what we've done to the Force, Your Honor, we have amplified it perhaps a bit too much. A bit too much, admittedly, a bit too amplified for people's liking. But we did not break the Force. And in future films, we can tone that down. We'll just tone it down a little bit. We're going to just pull it down, just there, just right, perfect. Just the same way George Lucas learned that he needed to pull his Jedi ballerina stuff down. You know, there's a learning curve with Star Wars. George learned in the learning curve. You have some success, and then you have some failure. And we've had some success, and we've had some failure. And I would just love you to remember moments like the Andor series, moments like Rogue One, moments like the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian before the saboteur Jonathan Favreau screwed us in the behind. These things paint a picture of a healthy franchise that could have been. If the fans had not taken everything so goddamn personally, we might have been friends. I rest.
Well, Your Honor, the defense have spoken passionately on a wide variety of subjects, none of which have anything to do with the lore of Star Wars, really. But they have been entertaining nonetheless, and I appreciate their contributions to this discussion.
I feel unsafe.
Okay. I retract my existence.
Thank you, Your Honor. We appreciate him retracting his existence. Can we move on?
However, I believe that the facts of the matter speak for themselves in this case. The lore of Star Wars has been consistently and repeatedly and forcefully violated without any preamble or without any preparation of any sort by Disney. The results are a bloody and raw mess of violated canon and lore, and unfortunately, it falls to the drinker to clean it up. And I believe the prosecution has done that today. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Mr. Relic, you had a quick comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up. I have some problems with the original trilogy, and I think a lot of those problematic things were remedied in the Disney Star Wars. I think it strains credulity that there are no gay people in space in the original trilogy, and in the new trilogy we get a ton of gay space people, and from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. I mean, Star Wars for everybody.
I just need to pipe in here a little bit. That your statement is false. All the stormtroopers are gay.
Nice one, George.
Thank you, George.
We didn't even have to
let you know.
Never mind.
Well, that's a change.
Mr. Lucas, can you explain why so many of your alien races or racial stereotypes, such as the mining guild, is basically considered has been condemned as anti-Semitic, and another, I can't remember the other race, but the one trade Federation race that looks like terrible-looking Chinese people? Why are all your characters racial?
Why are you disparaging the first appearance of Chinese people in Star Wars?
I believe you mean the Nemoidians.
Did you say so?
Look, I don't. These are characters. These are mostly puppets. I think that people reading anything into them is actually speaking on their own biases rather than mine.
Hey everyone, big heads up. Paleo Valley's running a sale on all their meat sticks right now. You can get 30 sticks for $36.
Wait.
Would you please, is this an appropriate time to make a motion?
Oh, 5 was.
I will allow it. I will allow it. Yeah.
So this is,
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion that you recuse yourself as judge, particularly for your conduct and behavior over this past weekend.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Mr. Ring. I think it's inappropriate for you to bring up this motion.
Well, I think it was inappropriate for you to have done what you did.
If I understand you correctly, this has something to do with your daughter and the events this past weekend in Dallas, Texas. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, for the disgrace and dishonor that you have brought upon my daughter and our family.
I will. First of all, I'll allow a brief discussion of this because I want to make sure that something like this does not happen again. Whatever happens outside this courtroom, if it happens outside this courtroom, should not affect the proceedings here today. I know something of what you're talking about, and I think when you see here, I had appeared on an internet show called FNT. I was appeared in a group shot with a bunch of individuals with microphones. There was a woman there. That my understanding is that she is your daughter.
That is correct. And I don't know if you're able to, but if you could zoom in on that picture.
Well,
do we have a close-up of that
down
picture?
very quickly.
Yes. Yes, I believe you are trying to influence the prosecution in a very inappropriate way.
What I will say,
let me just,
Mr. Ring, don't make me use the gavel. Let me just say this. If you're sitting on a couch with a bunch of men and a woman comes to your side and surprises you, that is a look of a surprised man. I am certain that any other person who is approached on the side by anyone, you would have a look of surprise on your face. That is exactly what that is.
Yes, my understanding is your head was in this position for 5 minutes as they are trying to set up this shot.
I believe there's someone else in our gallery here that I believe can discuss and can clear me of your accusations. Your internet daughter, X-Ray Girl, is here.
Hi, Dad.
Please, can you
yes, Donna, can you explain yourself in the picture?
I sat down to take a picture, and Chris got all up in my face. Sorry, Judge Gore, and he told me to call him Daddy, and I'm scared, Dad.
Yes, I had to remind you or tweet you to excuse yourself to the restroom and then leave the building.
Which I did. I did.
Yes, I'm very proud of you for that.
Well, let me be real for a moment here. Was this before or after the 7 White Claws that were consumed by your daughter? There is more photographic evidence that we could show. I will, to preserve the honor of your internet daughter, Mr. Ng, I will not disclose these pictures, but I will remind you that events that take place out of this courtroom are inadmissible. The personal lives of anyone, the attorneys here today, the witnesses, it is not allowable in this fake courtroom. So, anything else to add?
I have nothing bad to say about my daughter. Her life is her life, and how she chooses to waste it away is her problem. I give her full authority over her life in that way. And yes, at times she has brought dishonor to our family. But again, your behavior here is excusable. If you look at the line of sight with your eyes, I find it disgusting and reprehensible. And her mother is crying, weeping, gnashing her teeth. So you have disrupted this family.
Again, Mr. Ng, that is a look of a man that is surprised by a woman that has very quickly breached upon my space. And I would say, if she were my daughter, I would be very proud that she could consume as many White Claws in such a short period of time. So you look on it as dishonor. I say, well done, and you should be proud. But we will no longer. Miss Girl, would you like to anything to add to the situation?
I would like to say I'm very sorry, Dad, Mr. Ng. Let me make that clear. That I did this. I would also say, Judge Gore, you can party hardy, and I'm very surprised. Very surprised. I like Frank Gore a lot.
Well, and thank you. That's all we have from your daughter today, Mr. Ng. I would warn you to refrain from bringing any more personal matters that take place outside this courtroom into the courtroom.
Yes, and I would like to also ask you to refrain from any philandering with my daughter. I understand you appreciated her ability to assemble furniture for the Kenobi series, but that is no excuse.
Assemble furniture for the Kenobi series? Blatant disregard and threatening fans.
Let me bring up the most recent example of this, and that is of the character Reva, and from the Kenobi series. Judge Gore and I, we have spoken critically of the character, not the actress, but of the character itself. If we were critical of the actress, it was in the way in which she was portrayed. And it seems like that a lot of the criticism of Reva has been described as racist or examples of racism, which led one Ewan McGregor to post a video with his shock and dismay about the racist comments and tweets she has been getting, which I will admit she has probably gotten, being a person of the internet and a celebrity. That is kind of par for the course for anyone. But no one has ever really talked about the quality of her performance, and they're just writing this off as being a racist thing. I'd just like to open that up for comment. Do you feel like that this is a case in which fans were treated unfairly for something legitimately bad?
Well, I can say I've never actually seen any of these supposed racist comments, and it felt like they sure went on the defense for something they weren't even being accused of in the first place or thrown at them, and they were trying to use the racist tactic to deflect from legitimate gripes and criticism, which usually were lobbied more towards the writing of the character and the caliber than the actual actress.
I would agree with Tom, and I would also say that if you haven't been making racist comments, they are not talking about you. So, and in fact, they're not talking about the majority of the fan base.
But I don't think that was ever stated. I don't think you McGregor ever said for the small minority of critics.
Yes.
I would like to condemn your comments. It appeared that he was referring to everybody who was criticizing the character and the actress.
Well, I as a fan, I didn't feel attacked at all because he wasn't talking about me. And I feel like everyone should feel the same if you were not blatantly being racist. And even Ryan Kendall himself a few weeks ago has demonstrated he gets horrifying DMs as a smaller public figure than any of these people. So I don't doubt that it happened. I just think that if you weren't participating in it, you shouldn't feel threatened by Disney because they're not talking to you. That's just how it is.
Now, I'd like to add to what Alan was saying and Tom as
Please.
well, that I think this is a tactic. And I think when people have attacked characters, from my perspective, which I believe is in line with the charge, when you don't create something that has wide appeal, when you poorly construct stories, which is written in the charge, that do not appeal to a universal audience, which Lucas already had created and given on a silver platter to Disney. And when people respond to that and they say, I don't like these characters, they don't feel like Star Wars, they are not Star Wars, the tactic is respond back with racist charges, etc. Just strafe out and hit the audience. But the Star Wars fan, again, to bring it back to what matters, is just feeling like this isn't Star Wars. And when they object, whatever tactic they want to use, racist, misogynist, I believe Dr. Gordo said old dead white man in regards to Joseph Campbell, which is just insane. I think, again, that's just a tactic. But the Star Wars fan who loved what Lucas gave us, the mythos is why we love it. It's not just lightsaber battles. We care about the heart of these characters. And when you see Kenobi, even the mentioning of the show, where Vader and Kenobi are supposed to fight outside of what Lucas clearly gave us, and people are like, I don't understand. This doesn't feel right. And even if they tune in, it's just off because they're messing with the classical heroes. And I'd love to throw this out in the debate and throw it to Lofty and Dr. Gordo. Do you think they continued the hero's journey in any respectful kind of way? If you want to do something different, call it something else. You have a whole universe to explore. But to make 7, 8, and 9 and call it the end of the Skywalker saga with what they gave us, do you think that is okay?
I'm not a fan of the trilogy. I believe I've said that before. In fact, I think the Rise of Skywalker may even be worse than The Last Jedi. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just I think we have a different opinion about the trajectory of the franchise going forward.
Well, then, so you agree? You agree that the wide audience appeal, which Lucas said, the success of Star Wars was to the psychological underpinnings he pulled from Campbell's work, which is my main argument. How do you divide a fan base? You invert, you distort, you twist, you hijack the meaning of heroic characters, which is what we connect to, and you give us something totally different. You just said yourself, then you didn't even really connect that well with Jedi or Skywalker.
Last Jedi was
and I think
really
I do
bad.
believe
It
you're
was
partially
like
correct, but you're also
war.
partially wrong. I think with The Force Awakens, Abrams was clearly trying to reboot or copy and mimic what Lucas was doing with A New Hope. So you're making these grand statements of objective reality. It's like, well, you're partially correct, and you're also partially wrong. They did, in some areas, attempt to reimagine or continue the Joseph Campbell sort of mythology in some ways.
How? So if you take Rey, the quintessential character, which I cited in my opening, the way that she goes about, there's a great line from Iron Man. He says, if you need the suit, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it. Yep. And this is Rey. If she take the powers away from Rey, what is she? She doesn't fail. There's no humility. If you look at Luke Skywalker fails from Tusken Raiders, Wedge bailing him out during the trench run, needs help in the cantina, constantly fails, gets his arm chopped off.
Yeah.
Is constantly in
his life.
failure.
Yes.
Puts his weapons on against Yoda's advice. You do not need them. He goes in. He's failing constantly. He needs X-Wing fighters to drag him out. Rey does not fail. And if you want to destroy the appeal to a wide audience, you take away and you give a Mary Sue character as the heart, the new Luke, and you make our attention go to Rey and not Luke. And I think that is a destruction of the mythos. Where does she fail? She's the same in 7 as she is in 9, just with new powers.
I would say I mostly agree with you. I would say that given the fact that they didn't have a planned trilogy and that it was
Whose fault is that? The multi-billion-dollar corporation?
Yes, it was a hodgepodge of.
Thank you for agreeing with the prosecution. Thank you.
Yes. Oh boy, now I'm.
That's awesome.
See,
are you a false flag? This is great. This is
Kennedy's
great.
going to kill me, isn't she? I will say that Rey, although I don't like the character, I feel like her flaws are in her mental state of mind. She is obsessed with learning about her past, learning about where she came from.
Where does she fail?
Well, the failure would be to waste time and energy focusing on things that
That's
you
not
can't
failure.
control.
Where does she fail? Like Luke trying to lift the X-Wing. And you can make carbon copies,
That's
right?
fair. That's fair. That's
Where
fair.
does she fail?
Yeah, I would say that Rey bypassed the hero's journey.
She bypassed the heart of all of us.
Yeah.
We relate to Luke because he failed. We don't relate to Mary Sue.
Fair argument, sir. That is
And not to change the subject a little bit, but Mr. Pixels brought it up earlier, and I guess we can address Mr. Johnson on this part.
It's not Mr. Johnson. It's Mr. Richardson.
It's Richardson now? I have no idea who we're talking to anymore. Basically, the idea that Mr. Johnson wasn't given any guidelines to go by, but at the same time, don't you think it would still make sense to at least read the script or see the previous film? I mean, it boggles my brain. There's not, I would like to have one example in the history of filmmaking where. Sorry,
what's that, sir? Mr. Johnson.
Objection, Your Honor. I did see the previous film.
It was on in the background at a big Hollywood party while I was talking about my favorite Alfred Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick movies with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis. This was shortly before he lost the ability to have conversations about his favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Excuse me, Ryan. You keep changing. But people are coming into court late. Some members of the jury are joining late. They may be confused. You may want to update your name on there so that people know exactly who you are.
I'm sorry. It changes by what I, what I feel at the moment.
This is exculpatory evidence.
That's pretty funny. All right, let's see. All right, so we're on 25 of 60 or 25 of 50.
When our neighbors face hard times, we roll up our sleeves together, side by side.
Wait, what?
I think that people are missing something very crucial to this conversation, and I should stay out of this. But were any aspects of force use in the original trilogy, force grabbing, for instance, grabbing objects, force ghosts, even the Jedi mind trick, were they explicitly set up before they happened, or did they just happen? I'll take my answer off air.
That's why the hero's journey matters. Because whether you're talking about Lord of the Rings, Marvel, Matrix, whatever vehicle you use, if you're on board with the characters and they're well-defined and well-written, like Luke, Han, and Leia, and they have their clear territory, as Harrison Ford even said in his interviews, Luke is the callow youth, I'm the smuggler, I'm the smartass. When you have your areas to relate to, these nerd minutia, I have to keep saying this, about all the other stuff is secondary. It's about what Lucas wanted to do. Will you ask the big questions of life, the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, the Romeo and Juliet tragedy? Do you feel that? That's what matters most. Everything else about the Jedi mind tricks, and these are vehicles for something to be translated to people, and kids got it. People got it all over the world, and they lined up outside the Chinese theater and everywhere, and they were blown away because they had not seen modern myth in that way updated and presented the way they did it. And Lucas cared so much about myth, so much, he gave up his DGA, his WGA, and his Motion Picture Association credentials so that he could keep people in the mythical dimension.
He even gave up his own creation. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
Where did you think the blue milk came from?
It's irrelevant to me.
You were imagining.
Why was it green in your movie, Ryan?
Why is Luke jaded and bitter? That's what matters. Why is
Logan jaded and bitter in his Old Man Logan graphic novel and the movie?
Yeah, well, anyway, it's funny
which was very successful, by the way. Why is Logan bitter and old? Why is that okay and not Luke?
Because he's not Luke Skywalker.
Well, they give us good reasons in the film and the stories as to why. They did not give us good reasons as to why Ryan Johnson decided to do this to our boy.
And this has to be said. I would love to hear Lofty's thought on this. If you know Campbell, the atonement with the Father is so crucial. It's so crucial. It's one of the steps of the hero's journey. What they did with Kylo was they had him have a memory of his father, and he was redeemed. And from that point on, the storytelling in Star Wars said he's a hero. From the point he throws his lightsaber away and has a memory, which again, George Lucas gave us 1 through 6, the whole tragic fall of Anakin being redeemed by Luke, and you're supposed to go along with Kylo is now a hero because they decided he should be. Not because he earned it, not because he did the right thing and really atoned with his father at atonement. He didn't do that. He didn't earn it with us. So then he goes and becomes a hero. He murdered his father. This is destruction of myth. He did the unthinkable. He murdered his own father.
Mr. Johnson, I directly would like to ask you, what did you do and why did you do it to Mr. Snow?
I did 12 white transitions, okay? I thought you fans were going to be happy. 12
See? Kurosawa white transitions and horizon shots.
What is your problem?
It's cosplay narrative myth. It's not myth. It's just, it looks like it. It's cosplay narrative.
Your Honor, I must point out that Mr. Johnson's actually doing exactly what Disney and Star Wars are being charged of in this count.
I'm always amazed how few people know about Gamergate. It explains many violent harassment campaigns going on today. It's a lot of the same people angry about the same stuff, using the same playbook.
I'm surprised, huh?
Right.
I was surprised to find out the killer in the Knives Out Part 2, 5 minutes into the movie. That's a different.
I just want to say that there's a line from Top Gun where he said, "Did my old man do it right? Did they stick the landing? Basically, did they do this right? Did they end it right?" And from my opinion, all the misogyny, racism, attacks on fans come from people who are rejecting the very core of what they gave us and what they did to Lucas's classical mythos. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't look like Star Wars. And here's the thing: they had all the money and they had everything behind to make it happen, but they didn't. And I think all the tactics that corporations are using in the political realm, it doesn't even matter. They'll just attack. I don't think that's where the focus should be. They divided the fan base because they destroyed the universal appeal of Star Wars, which was already there. They didn't have to create it.
I believe the count is a bit of an exaggeration. Like I said, I think they haven't ignored the audience. They just delivered a poor story. I feel like in other areas of the Star Wars universe, like I said, The Mandalorian, even though it's not great, it's touching on some Lucas-esque mythology, imagery, things like that. And in general, I think, does the trilogy suck? Yes. Is it terrible? Yes. Is the blue milk disgusting? Yes. Is Rey Mary Sue? Yes. However, going forward, I don't think the the franchise is a dead franchise. I think there's room for improvement, and I just maybe this is my version of hope, as you will, as a fan of where I wish Star Wars would go. And I think it's just floundering at the moment. I think we're dealing with some very incompetent writers that are now on strike, conveniently. So we will see. Is my position.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about myth. The story of Star Wars is built on myth. The only myth I see in this court today is the defense and their lack of.
I'm very real. Just because I'm a hologram, I'm stuck on Tatooine.
Representation here, because and as far as the slave Leia thing, which is I feel the only thing I may not have addressed in my arguments today. Here's exhibit for you. Did anybody bother asking women how they felt about this? There's a lot of cosplayers. This is a very popular costume for. In fact, our own Judge Gore has been seen in slave Leia uniform. I believe. I
guess, Your Honor, that Mr. Connors, I guess that women would disagree with Princess Leia herself in the that Vanity Fair article where she talks about it being inappropriate and that Daisy Ridley should pursue a more powerful role as a woman.
Well, I mean, I think many of these women feel and look very happy and look like they're doing what they want to do to me. And the other fact that we talked about is the fandom. How they have treated the fandom has eroded this fan base.
You might know Harbor Freight for affordability. What you might not know is performance and durability.
My colleague gave a very impassioned speech about how the stories were ignored and how he feels that it has ignored the fans when it comes to storytelling. And we've also talked about how they've pushed the fans away to the point where over half of them have left. And this is just the main trilogy. This isn't getting into Solo and other films that have lost money. In fact,
yeah, I again, see your well laid out argument. My dick.
I think we should. I think
could you repeat that, Mr. Johnson? Could you repeat?
I was just saying that I actually can see and understand and agree that you should not kill off a villain without explaining to my dick.
Your Honor, I move to say that nobody's ever actually seen Rian Johnson's dick besides himself, so there's no actual proof that it exists.
I motion to dismiss. I motion to dismiss the sexy women photograph. I feel like the jury has now completely forgotten about the entire defense and is just focused on that one image.
It's already in.
This is unfortunate. This is unfortunate. Oh my goodness.
We need to have order in the courtroom so we can proceed here. And I'll say this, Mr. Johnson, please. If I might add, my dick. If you are on my dick, if you're on the internet, you should refrain from looking up Chris Gore Slave Leia. I will just ask you to refrain. We don't need any more controversies. So there you are.
I have anxiety at the moment.
Is it about my dick?
Mr. Johnson, I would ask you to please restrain yourself.
Use he, him.
Yeah, it's okay, Judge. I'll restrain my dick.
That's something that Rian Johnson does.
All right, here we go. The jury voted, but this is the consequences that this is the consequences. They talk about consequences, and here they are. So you know, I think you guys made a mistake, and you better watch yourselves on the way out the door today.
Your Honor, I want it noted that the defense is threatening the jury.
I'm pointing at the wall, Your Honor. I'm pointing at the wall. I'm pointing my gun at the wall.
The finger should never be on the trigger, by the way.
Yeah, really.
That's what she said. But I will not. I will take this away. I will take this
Your
away.
Honor, I am
That's what
personally
she said.
triggered. Oh, it's a pun.
So you want a safe space? Is that what you're saying? You want a safe space? You can't take a bit of edginess.
Hey, I'm
triggered. You're triggered.
Joseph Campbell. That'll help you.
Your mind.
Fuck you, man.
And by the way, that was not Ryan Johnson's dick. That was an AR-15.
My dick. And with that, we'll. We have one last super chat here.
Oh my goodness.
Oh dear.
I want to thank Jesse for his comments here as Mr. Ryan Johnson impersonator.
Oh dear. Oh my gosh. So we're on 25s, 26.
Mr. Pixels, you talked about flowery language, which was interesting to me because you said that an actor was talking about shipping characters, and the thing is that we've actually had a writer who's confirmed the sexuality of an individual, and in fact, I would say this is pandering to an audience. I bring an exhibit here, whatever number it is. Star Wars writer confirms that Donald Glover's character is pansexual in Solo. Yeah, I mean, right there in bold letters.
I mean, first of all, this was not in the film. It can be implied. It can be implied, but that's my first take. Second of all, I don't see an issue with a space smuggler. With his personality being a bi or whatever that word means. I feel like this would be a very common thing in the galaxy. I don't have a problem with it. You may have to make an argument against it. I just don't see the issue.
No argument there on in the part of whether or not a character could, should, or would be. That's not the point here, Mr. Pixels. The point you tried to make, though, while accusing the prosecution of flowery language, was that Disney was not guilty of this very thing that they're doing right here in this article that you said that they weren't doing. And in fact, I have another exhibit here where you claimed that Rey and Ben had no sort of romantic relationship. I don't know about you, but if you Skype with somebody as long as they did through the Force, that sure does feel like there's a relationship. And I think this here says everything it needs to say.
Do you know what this says to me, Mr. Prosecutor? This says, I feel bad that you're dying. I'm going to give you one last little gift before you die.
I don't know. I think that's up to the jury for interpretation here. This kid seems very romantic to me. But that's just my opinion, I guess. So, the other point I wanted to make was, I guess, to Dr. Gordo did say one thing that made sense to me, I guess. And that was the audience leaving the franchise. So I bring another exhibit in here again. I believe I shared this before, but I reestablished this exhibit, and that is the box office take of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, going from $2.069 billion down to $1.078 billion, ostensibly losing half of the audience. If you want to share that image, you can. It's up to you guys.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, that's all right. There you go. So just for a visual aid there, but yes, I think that says all it has to say about driving the fans away.
But also, let me add just one more image from The Force Awakens. Let me pull it up here.
I would say I agree.
The Force Awakens featuring a same-sex kiss as the rebellion.
Oh my goodness! What an act of terrorism! We might as well just bunker.
Objection, Your Honor, to that.
Horrible.
If I could just, Mr. Ng, I need to correct you on that. That is from the ending of The Rise of Skywalker, sir.
Was that Rise of Skywalker? Or was that Force Awakens?
It was Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. That was Rise of Skywalker, correct. That was the end of the entire franchise.
Mr. Ng, I expect you to do a better job at your homework when
these movies just blur together for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
May I address the
I do agree with that as well. The movies are a blur. Not very memorable.
Mr. Daniel, you had a comment, please.
Yes, I do. I want the jury to recognize what's happening right now. I believe I did address the charge, the flagrant, poorly constructed stories that do not appeal to a wide audience. This idea that Rey and Finn and Poe and the relationship, this is all the nerd minutia. This is supposed to take place in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's the mythical dimension. This has nothing to do with whatever Gordo was saying and anybody else is saying. This is about how do you destroy and cut off half the audience? You destroy the hero's journey. You destroy the classical mythos. If you want to create another product that goes against what Lucas gave us from 1 through 6, 2/3 of a product, and then you want to go take it somewhere else, that's totally fine. But if you're wondering why the audience is divided in half, if you wonder why people are turning away and then being called names for it, It's because you're going against the classical myth that Lucas gave us. All this arguing that Lotzi just gave and whatever Gordo just did is the nerd minutia. This is not what we should be talking about. Star Wars matters, and when you destroy classical characters that mean something to people, where they sing John Williams, they want to dress up like Luke, they want to embody the wisdom of Yoda and go about their lives and try to be better people, that is what I think this charge is referring to. And when you destroy the bark, the root of something, everything else being debated, what the Reylos, the this, the that, has nothing to do with it. This is about Star Wars matters. Finn and Poe having an almost relationship is such nerd minutia. This is a mythical dimension, long time ago, galaxy far, far away, not Earth 2023. Nothing to do with it.
I am simply saying, if Disney was intending to divide the fan base on purpose and side with a specific version, a specific side of the fan base, they would have gone much further with it.
No, you do that by destroying classical Greek characters. You do that by destroying the myth.
Well, the myth is not destroyed. The original trilogy still exists, sir. And Luke's journey ends. Luke's journey ends with a defiant sacrificial death. And I don't know how much more powerful of an ending you can have.
Who's sacrificial death?
Luke Skywalker.
That's how you see that Episode 9 ended. It wasn't focused on Rey.
No, I'm saying Luke Skywalker's journey ends with him defiantly sacrificing his life.
That's what Lucas gave us. The charge is Disney has destroyed the mythos that
Disney gave us this in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that was not a sacrificial death, even comparable to what Lucas gave us.
I think the jury would disagree.
He literally phoned it in, sir.
He wasn't
even.
Literally
died. He literally died in sacrificing the myth. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled.
Excuse me, Pixels. Yes, the jury, I've been monitoring the jury's comments. The jury would like to hear from Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, I want to remind you that Mr. Johnson is here. He takes no side. He is not on the side of the prosecution. Mr. Johnson is not on the side of the defense. He is here to. So perhaps we can hear from Mr. Johnson on the last comment.
I mean, he literally sacrifices himself at the end of the movie. This is kind of a stupid hill to die on, I think.
It is.
She, her, shim.
I agree, Mr. Johnson. I'm sorry, Zim. I agree, Zim.
I didn't take it.
Mr. Zum, may I ask you a question, Mr. Ryan?
Yes, please.
Do you believe in good? Do you believe in good versus evil?
Look, the goal is never to divide or make people upset, but I do think the conversations that are happening are going to have to happen at some point if Star Wars is going to grow and move forward and stay vital. I mean, George Lucas made a gorgeous 7-hour-long movie for children about entitlement and fear of loss that turns good people into fascists. And, he did it while spearheading every early technical difficulty of modern filmmaking of the past 30 years.
Mr. Johnson, if I may, you said George Lucas made a 7-hour movie for children. Do children have money?
No.
Okay, my parents have money, right? And they buy toys for children. Would you say your film has anything in it that would make a child want to go out and buy a toy? Or have their parents buy them a toy, I should say?
BB-8, Your Honor. BB-8, Your Honor.
That's from Force Awakens, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's also in The Last Jedi, but I'm sorry.
As an auteur, I can't say that my heart is in selling toys. And perhaps I was not the best choice for that aspect of the lore building. But I think I added a lot of thoughtful aspects to the proceedings.
No more questions, Your Honor. I believe that the defense and Mr. Johnson are just doing everything they can to make our case today. I mean, this is...
Luke is, in fact, 100% consistent with his character. Not the way he's described in marketing blurbs, but his actual, based on his words and actions, character from the original trilogy. I'll be at the bar if you need me.
Oops. Shoot.
The secret to our deodorant is sand. We got a crazy message from a customer named Mina. Here it is. Hi, I'm a big fan of your deodorant, and I'm a student at University of Detroit Mercy. In my microbiology lab class, we swabbed our armpits to see what will grow on a petri dish, and I ended up having the least...
Hold on, let me go back. You know what?
Mr. Pixels,
is that the one we just...
You talked about flowery language, which is interesting to me because you said that
your case, Mr. Cobra. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the court and the Honorable Judge Gore for allowing the prosecution this opportunity to stand up for Star Wars, George Lucas's Star Wars. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we are going to talk about a crime, but not just any crime, a crime 30 years in the making, a crime that spans generations, a crime so disgusting and motivation so deceiving that when we are done, without a shadow of a doubt, you will understand the pain and the suffering that has been caused to fans all around the world. Disney and Lucasfilm executives set out to destroy a fandom and decades of storytelling and passion. They decided to focus on 3 of the most iconic characters we have ever seen in entertainment. Why? Because you, the fan, loved those characters. It's because you loved them, and that was unacceptable to the powers that be. At first, they used our nostalgia to pull us in, a very disgusting and devious practice. We have video evidence of Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, lying straight to George Lucas's face. We have quotes from Bob Iger talking about how George Lucas himself felt used after the fact. We have quotes from George Lucas talking about how he sold the company to white slavers. We have evidence, indisputable evidence, of writers being fired because they focused too much on legacy characters. Legacy characters. The characters that you loved, the characters that you were interested in, people were fired because they wanted to focus a Star Wars story on those characters. That's what we're talking about today. We are going to talk about everything from the beginning. Disney and Lucasfilm never cared about growing or complementing this universe. They only wanted to hijack it and destroy it they did, unfortunately. I am simply a humble Star Wars fan. I grew up loving Luke Skywalker in a galaxy far, far away. Luke Skywalker was the standard for me when he looked over and saw those twin suns. It hit me and millions of other fans in ways that I can't properly describe. It was magic. It was Star Wars. We, the fans, gave Lucasfilm every opportunity, and they took it. They took our goodwill and they spit in our faces. And then when we complained about the spit in our face, they blamed us for the spit that was in our face. We will never forgive them for what they did to us. We wanted to see our hero, Luke Skywalker. We wanted to see our princess. We wanted to see our favorite scoundrel become the man that we always knew he would become. Instead, we got old, depressed, and angry shells of what our heroes once were. A crime has certainly been committed, and the people responsible will pay, and justice will be served. Thank you for allowing me these opening statements. Now we have some video to talk about, and it is going to let you see just how terrible these people are. Some of them are in the courtroom today. And Mr. J.J. Abrams, I understand that there's probably too many white men on the panel today, and you're probably a little uncomfortable. And I just want you to know we're all happy you're uncomfortable. But let's show you some of this video evidence that we have right here. And we're going to start out with something that's just so disgusting to watch. And I'm sharing my screen right now. This is really awful, what I'm about to show you. This is video evidence of Kathleen Kennedy lying to George Lucas. I'm sharing my screen now for the court. If the court could share my screen, be much appreciated. Here we go right here. This is when the announcement was made that George Lucas was selling to Lucasfilm and appointing Kathleen Kennedy. Listen to the language. You will feel exactly like I do after this video.
I always said I wasn't going to do any more, and that's true. I'm not going to do any more. But that doesn't mean I'm unwilling to turn it over to Kathy to do more. I have story treatments of 7, 8, and 9 and a bunch of other movies, and obviously we have hundreds of books and comics and everything you could possibly imagine. So, I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies. I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life, and so that more fans and people can enjoy them in the future. It's a very big universe I've created, and there's a lot of stories that are sitting in there.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
The main thing is to protect these characters. Disgusting lies, pulling in our nostalgia and making promises that they cannot keep. And I stand before you today in 2023, and everyone that has watched Disney Star Wars understands that was a lie. That was a lie, and we all know it. Let's let the lies continue.
And that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow.
I just said that I would back her up, and I would be there if and especially helping with the script and making sure the script sort of, there's a lot of blank spots in the story treatment that hopefully we can fill in. And
I think the incredible thing about George is, this is not like a series of books like Harry Potter where you've already got a template of what the stories might be. These are original stories and original ideas that come out of a world that essentially is in George's head. So the beauty of the collaboration that can continue is as we work our way through these scripts, if we're sitting and saying, I wonder if this character can do that, or does this make sense within the rules of Star Wars? That really, he's the keeper of the flame when it comes to that.
He's the keeper of the flame when it comes to that, talking about relying on George and his creativity and his genius to continue to help them develop Lucasfilm and Star Wars. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you to remember these quotes from Kathleen Kennedy as we continue to compile the evidence to show you the devious nature of what Lucasfilm and Disney has done, the lies and the disgusting behavior. Let's continue on.
The same thing with the first 3 films. That's all my job is to be the keeper of the flame.
Yeah.
It's based on human behavior, human psychology, mythology, which is the sort of archaeology of human behavior and thinking. And since it has those motifs, it is very universal, and everybody can relate to it.
Yes,
it's about good and evil
yeah.
in us, as well as our institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people.
Or you can make bad choices.
Well, you make bad choices, but you.
Oh, yes, we can, George, can't we? We can make bad choices. There's one sitting right across the table from you.
Run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom turn it over to somebody who's going to take it all away from them? It's happened through history forever and ever. And all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules. And if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom. And at the same time, those people who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people who don't care about other people.
There you go.
Very interesting language there used by the great George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. Now, this was made around the time that the purchase of Disney and Lucasfilm was made. Again, keeping George on, using his creativity, using his genius. We want to talk to George about decisions on characters, things like that. All of these promises were made in order to manipulate the fans into believing that this was done for the right reasons. But again, I remind you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, negligence is what's at stake here. Negligence. And how they treated the legacy characters. I have more video for you, and it is really, really disgusting, but we have more. This is the great George Lucas after the fact, after seeing what Disney had done. Now, remember, promises to honor George, honor his characters, honor the legacy, utilize George, talk to George, get his opinions, all of his feedback, get his stamp of approval. That didn't happen, ladies and gentlemen, because lies were told to you, to me, and to everyone that loves Star Wars. Here we go. The audio might be a little low on this. I'll try to bump it up.
Let me just talk about the upcoming Star Wars, The Force Awakens. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's, I made the decision to sell the company, Star Wars. I made that decision because I looked at the future. I looked at the thought that I was going to have a baby. I looked at the fact that I was married. And I looked at the fact that I wanted to build a museum. And I looked at the fact that I wanted to make experimental films. So my life was going on a different track. I noticed the last few movies that I'd made were costing the company a lot of money. And I didn't think that was fair to the people that worked there or the company. And so I made a decision to move ahead on the next Star Wars series, and we were starting to do that.
So you were starting to make the next Star Wars?
Yeah.
You as director of filming?
So, and we were working with a writer. It wasn't quite working out, but I was also, I was also stepping away a little bit and turning things over to Kathy Kennedy. And so what happened was Disney said, or Bob Iger said, if you really want to sell your company, if you're thinking about selling it, because we were talking about retirement and what are you going to do after all this stuff. And he said, well, if you really want to sell it, we're very interested. So that started that ball rolling.
So George didn't go to Disney. Disney came to him, showing the deceptive nature from the beginning, trying to take full advantage of George.
And I knew from, and I had the story treatments or, outlines, and we were working on scripts. And so I sold it, but I knew when I sold it, I said, I've tried to make movies where I step away to sort of Empire and Return of the Jedi. And after about a couple of weeks, I knew I couldn't do that. I had to stand over the shoulder of the director, help him, whisper in his ear constantly, do this, do that, and be there to help guide it. And it was much harder than if I just directed it myself. J.J. Abrams, he's a good director and good friend.
J.J. Abrams, who is with us today, George Lucas considered a good friend at the time. We will follow up on that
sort of thing. But he's also a top director, his own company, all this other stuff. And Disney, who was a little nervous. There's one of the issues was the first three movies had all kinds of issues. They looked at the stories and they said, we want to make something for the fans. So I said, all I want to do is tell a story of what happened. You know, it started here and it went there, and it's all about generations, and it's about, you know, the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers, and it's a family soap opera.
A family soap opera, and according to George Lucas himself, Disney said they wanted to make something for the fans. Again, deceptive behavior, using language that was not true, but it meant to pull people in from a nostalgic standpoint. You know, manipulating people, gaslighting people. This has been their method since the beginning. And as we continue to show you this evidence, although at this time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I think you can already see the case that the prosecution is laying out for you is indefensible. You can't defend what we are seeing right now. This is disgusting, but Star Wars is important enough to show you all of the crimes committed by Disney and Lucasfilm, and we are going to do that. It's going to be uncomfortable to some. Some people in the audience right now maybe have tears in their eyes remembering what Disney did to them, causing emotional damage. And I feel for all of you. My heart goes out to every single one of you that is having an emotional response to this. And I apologize for having to bring the pain of what Disney and Lucasfilm did to you. I apologize for having to make you relive that. But in order to bring the people responsible to justice, we have to go through this process. But just understand that we as George Lucas Star Wars fans, we're here for you, and we're going to wrap our arms around you. Let's continue on.
I mean, ultimately, we call it space opera, but people don't realize it's actually a soap opera. And it's all about family problems and it's not about spaceships. So they decided they didn't want to use those stories. They said they were going to go do their own thing. And so I decided, fine. But basically, I'm not going to try to, they weren't that keen to have me involved anyway. But at the same time, I said, I'm not going to, if I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble because they're not going to do what I want them to do. So I don't have the control to do that anymore. And all I would do is muck everything up. So I said, okay, I will go my way and I'll let them go their way. And it really does come down to a simple rule of life, which is when you break up with somebody, the first rule is no phone calls. The second rule, you don't go over to their house and drive by to see what they're doing. The third one is you don't show up at their coffee shop or the things what you're going to run. You just say, no, gone, history, I'm moving forward. Because every time you do, and you know, we all learn this from experience, every time you do something like that, you're opening the wound again. And it just makes it harder for you. You have to put it behind you. And it's a very, very, very hard thing to do. But you have to just cut it off and say, okay, end the ball game. I got to move on. And everything in your body says, don't, you can't. These are my kids. So
all those Star Wars.
All the Star Wars films.
They were your kids.
Yeah, well, they are right. You know, I love them. I created them. I'm very intimately involved in them, and obviously to sell them off. I sold them to the white slavers that take these things and.
But I mean, but having said all.
Sold them to the white slavers. Now, again, George Lucas considers these Star Wars films his children. So that means that George Lucas had trust when he made this deal with Disney and Lucasfilm. He had trust and he had faith that they were going to do the right things. And now you see with this interview, we see a much different George Lucas than the moment that we saw earlier. And at this moment, this is a man who has realized that the people that have control of his universe don't actually care about his universe. And it's really, really disgusting. For the benefit of time, we're going to slow that one down and not show the rest of that one. We got a few more right here. This is a quick moment right here where Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, one of the gentlemen that is here in the courtroom today, they talk about George like he's not there. Here we go.
Question. I guess because it spoke to a new generation. It was that idea that there would be young people for whom Luke Skywalker was essentially a myth.
There isn't a day that goes by or went by as we were making the movie where we don't talk about George. You know, it's the standard. What would George do? One of the things that we talked about.
Now, I'm going to refrain from using profanity in the court today out of respect for the court. But when I hear language like that, when George Lucas himself is alive and you can contact him at any point in time, but you're sitting there pretending like you can't even find him because he's dead, disgusting. But it just continues to show the disrespect. Even Mark Hamill agrees with the disrespect.
When I read 8, I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character. But other than that, I can't really describe more. But it
says he fundamentally disagrees with everything Rian Johnson did with the character in episode 8. Here's another line.
And I think he has more leeway to really mess things up. It's Colin Trevorrow that's going to have to tie all the loose ends together.
I mean, you talked about the reaction to the first script, obviously, that funny kind of thing about waiting for Luke to appear,
Right.
etc. What was your reaction when you finally got a chance to read this one? Were you satisfied and excited in terms of how integral Luke is and was to the story? Were you surprised by what Ryan chose to do?
Yes, I was very surprised. And I have to tell you, and I should have realized that when I read 7, I said, I love everybody's part except mine.
There we go. Everybody's part except mine. We have a couple more now. Honorable Judge Gore, seeing as I'm the only person on the prosecution side, am I allowed at least another few minutes to present my case?
Just a few minutes,
Okay.
Mr. Cobra. And then additionally, I want to let you know you showed a video with Mr. Abrams. You do have Mr. Abrams here, and you will be subject to cross-examination
Absolutely.
after your presentation concludes. Please continue.
Absolutely. Okay, let me show you this one really quick. This is Harrison Ford talking about the Solo movie. Here's his response.
Are you looking forward to watching a Han Solo movie as a fan?
Not really. So clearly, good old Harrison Ford. And the last video evidence I want to show is from a great YouTuber by the name of Jeremy Johns talking about Bob Iger's book. And listen to what Bob Iger, after the fact, said about George Lucas.
What's it called? I don't know the name of the book. Bob Iger, My Journey, or something. Bob Iger, My Farts Smell Like Roses. I'm sure it's called that. And in one of these chapters in this book, the chapter, again, I don't know the name of the chapter, so we'll just call it That Time We Butt-Fucked George Lucas and Then Made Him Smile at Our Faces at Star Wars Celebration. Again, not called that. I'm making shit up. But this next part I'm not making up. In Bob Iger's book, Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, for those of you who don't know, he's the guy who owns the Monopoly board. He's that kid you don't want to play with because you're like, you own everything. Fuck you. Anywhere I land, I'm screwed. Point is, Bob Iger straight up says George Lucas felt betrayed by what they did with Star Wars. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put a link.
So there you go, right there. A lot of video evidence to show you what we have been through as Star Wars fans. And again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and our wonderful audience out there, I know it was an emotional journey for many of you. It was an emotional journey for me as well. Not easy to watch and relive all of that, but necessary to get to the point where we need to go. So that is the prosecution's case against Disney's Star Wars. I thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to present this to all of you.
A hole like this will ruin your iPhone 16. And here's why. On September 20th, Apple...
I mean, if Mr. Abrams is available for a few moments, I can ask him a couple of questions. So,
All right, Mr. Abrams.
Hello, Mr. Abrams. Not good to talk to you at all, but thank you for being here. I would just like to ask you, in what planet, and you said in the video that I showed with you and Kathleen Kennedy, in what planet do you think people don't know who Luke Skywalker is, so they have to be reintroduced to him? How does that mindset work? Because you said that your reasoning for not having Luke as a focal point is because there's a new generation of people that don't know Luke. Who doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is?
You know, the idea was to continue the story and to begin with that young woman who felt like Luke Skywalker was a myth, and to tell a story that was not just history repeating itself, but a story that embraced the movies that we know is the actual history of this galaxy. So that they are still living in a place, you know, where there is good versus evil. They're still living in the shadow of what has come before, still grappling with the sins of the father and the people who have preceded them.
Okay. Well, let me, if I can share my screen, I do have some direct quotes that I would like to speak with Mr. Abrams about episode 7. And it's right here. This is from an IndieWire interview. And I'm sharing my screen once again. And it says, in a recent Q&A with J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, and Michael Arndt, the screenwriter revealed some pretty intriguing details about early drafts in The Force Awakens. The most eye-opening is that in earlier versions of the screenplay, Luke Skywalker was a much bigger force in the movie. Now, Michael Arndt is an Oscar-winning screenwriter. Michael Arndt wrote a little movie that many of you have maybe heard of called Toy Story 3. Pretty sure people like Toy Story 3. Pretty sure it did a good job of honoring the characters. Well, Michael Arndt was brought on to write the screenplay for episode 7 before J.J. Abrams was brought on. After J.J., this is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. And before I show you this, again, if there are emotionally unstable people in the audience, you might want to turn away from the text that I'm about to show you because it's quite disturbing. This is from Michael Arndt. Early on, I tried to write versions of the story where Rey is at home. Her home is destroyed, and then she goes on the road and meets Luke. And then she goes and kicks the bad guy's ass. Arndt said, it just never worked, and I struggled with this. This was back in 2012. Apparently, the issue was Luke's presence was always upstaging everyone in the script. It just felt like every time Luke came in and entered the movie, he just took over. Arndt continued. Suddenly, you didn't care about your main character anymore because, OF, Luke Skywalker is here. I want to see what he is going to do. So that tells me that you, JJ, entered this situation. You saw that Luke Skywalker was the focus and that Luke Skywalker was taking attention away from the new characters, which of course he is, because it is Luke Mother effing Skywalker, and he should be taking the attention. And you then fired Michael Arndt and blew up the entire script because you didn't want Luke Skywalker to be the focus of a Star Wars movie, especially the lead movie in the sequel trilogy. That's how that appears, Mr. Abrams. How would you like to respond to that?
Look, the lesson is that you have to plan things the best you can. And you always need to be able to respond to the unexpected. And the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms.
That was a terrible answer.
I do think that, there's nothing more important than knowing where you're going.
Yeah, that answer is about as good as your Star Wars. So I guess we can go ahead and call it par for the course. Mr. Abrams, it seems like questioning you is about as worthless as revisiting any of your films. So I would say the prosecution is willing to be cross-examined by people not named J.J. Abrams.
Your Honor, I literally have a mystery box at home that I've had for decades, and I haven't opened it because I don't want to diminish the infinite potential that lies within.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams, and I appreciate your attendance.
That was pretty good. All right, I'm going to stop here for now. And man, that sketch artist did a good job. I'm going to wrap this stream up. I'm probably going to do a gaming stream next. Want to thank you all for joining me. Speaking of gaming stream, I might actually do I don't know if I should do another Full Throttle right now. I might try Force Unleashed. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Thanks for your continued support, and you all have a great day. Take it easy. Happy Saturday, everyone.